Hello, my name is Ketter, and I'm here with the first of hopefully many Battleshopper breakdowns. Today I'm going to bring you the Redlings deck. This deck top-aided the Platinum Plunder this weekend. I have selected the list piloted by the player Hodor, and I'm going to give you a quick breakdown of how the deck works, and then I'm going to play it in the Arcanum Vault, and we're going to record those matches and post them up. Now, some of you are probably asking, hey, who's this guy in front of me? My name's Ketter. Semi-professional TCG player from the Star City Open Series, I transitioned into Hex thanks to one of my friends, Jeff Hoagland, and from there, I've had a little bit of success. Top-aided one of the Platinum Plunders. Top 32 in one of the Platinum Plunders. I did not top-aid. Illusions of Grandeur, right there. Anyway, I'm really excited to work here with Battleshopper to try to bring some content that will help break down decks, as they're kind of coming out, to give people an understanding of not only what the deck is supposed to be doing, but also how it sideboards. And the emphasis of this series with the breakdowns are to focus on the elements of the way the deck's playing. I will definitely be making some mistakes during my gameplay. I'm going to do my best to play as tight as possible, but I'm more focusing on trying to accent the deck's engines, and when I sideboard, I really want to discuss, kind of the role you're going to take in those strategies to kind of fill in the gaps of information. When you just see a deck list and when you pilot it for the first time, I want to try to bridge that, that transition into a new deck to make it a little easier for everyone. And then, if you need some cards, Battleshopper's got you covered. But anyway, let's jump into the deck. We'll get into just some real quick elements on it, and then I will point out the reserves, and then I will go right into match one of the Vault. So, simply put, Redlings is a Ruby Blood aggressive strategy that takes advantage of Ivan's Slide Pot and his charge power, which allows you for 3 charges to make 1 Dreadling for each different race amongst Underworld faction troops that you control. This deck fills out those with such hits as Wicked Web Spawn, Rust Bucket Cultivator, Emperor's Lackey. You'll notice, and the Death Seekers. You'll notice the deck has a good diverse spread of races in the Underworld segment. The deck really comes together, though, in that it is still a Underworld Crusader gemmed with Speed and Lasgar's Vengeance deck. So while you're doing all of these smaller things with the Dreadlings and Slide Pot, producing the extra attacks, the real payoff cards is that Lasgar's Vengeance. You get to blow up anything from Empress to the Mirror, along with just throwing 4 damage at your opponent's face. Outside of that, this deck does access the Crypt Dust with enough Necrotics. And really, the biggest thing that this deck is going to do, as far as your strategy is concerned, is it's going to be able to produce a bunch of efficient threats in a way that should just be quicker than what most of the format is doing. And then on turns 3 or 4, it goes from dealing 4 to 5 damage to just a massive spike. And then after a sideboard, you very, very easily get to turn into a more efficient, we'll say mid-range, but the strategy that you're really going to kind of put into play out of the sideboard is you're going to be able to select whatever removal is most appropriate for your strategy. So in this sideboard, we have Gruesome Deed, and kind of a newer thing that is popping up now is Casualty to deal with the Empresses and the Commander prompts. You'll be able to slot these in over the least efficient cards in the main deck. So in the main deck, some of the cards that you are really going to need to be aware of in the different things that they're going to do for you. Gravengeist is a big engine card in this deck. You're going to be having all of your creatures come into play oversized. Now, while this card is very, very powerful and is really going to help out in scaling up the deck's power over time, it is important to note that the creature itself is pretty underwhelming and it dies to cheap shot a lot. So this is a card that, while important and powerful, since it is not necrotic, you will want to reach for that in a few situations to be able to board it out. The other card that really plays a major role in the deck but is questionable in all the situations that you want to apply it is Rust Bucket Distractor. Now, it's your best scrounge card. You have both Rust Bucket and Cremate. So Cremate, it's a very clear cut. You can swap it in for better removal as is appropriate. So that's why I'm not stressing that one. But with Rust Bucket, in the situations where you need to both board out cremate, like the control decks, where you maybe want to have access to, maybe the riposte or the like, rust buckets, not letting their creatures block, not really that impressive, but it's something that with the cheap scrounge effect on it, I do think you've got to, leave a certain amount in the deck. I would tell you to, as part of your sideboarding strategy, think of cremate and rust bucket not only as their respective card effects, but as the scrounge effects attached to it, and that should really help you try to, not reserve or access card in your reserves in a way that really makes your deck less effective after accessing those. It's not very common, but one thing you can notice, this deck has a lot of different 1-ofs and 2-ofs, and you might want to grab one of these, and then you board in all this removal, and suddenly you've lost your creature base. You're not just putting on enough pressure, or in the reverse, your opponent's creatures are just better than yours. And the downside of the Redlings or / any Redling strategy is if they have creatures that line up well against them, you have to maneuver your deck around that. The Dreadlings are both a blessing and a curse, so keep all these things in mind. Something like 4 Gemborn Prowler is just a super efficient removal spell out of the board that will let you maybe board out some of your more susceptible cards, but really punish the Crusader decks, both Ardent and Underworld. It's mostly Underworld. So from there, I'm pretty interested to see how the deck will sideboard. Specifically, you get Crackling Magma and the 4th Asgard's Vengeance for the mirror. I'd imagine the riposte is generally for the control strategies. Gemborn, just as is appropriate, slots out for cremate and attacks, and then we'll get to try out the super spicy Deed and Casualty of War package. But beyond that, I think this will be a very interesting series. Getting to play it in the vault means we are playing for, small amount of stakes, which always gives it just a little bit more feel. So we will be able to play a nice spread of decks in the meta, hopefully. I will make sure in my reserves in the games to, really try to emphasize why I'm making certain decisions. And if it doesn't work for a game, maybe we might switch it up for the next game. But I would encourage everyone at home, as you are making sideboarding decisions and maybe changing things around, please do them over multiple matches, 4 to 5 matches. Don't just do it once, and then if it doesn't work, try it again. That is definitely it's a confirmation bias, and you should probably avoid those. But anyway, this was Kent Ketter with a Battleshopper breakdown of Redlings. We'll be in match 1 here in just a minute. Please join me.